So we're going to make some AIP sausage gravy with biscuits. So this is just the start of the sausage gravy. I'm making kind of a double batch so that I can freeze some, or at least have some for meals for the next several days for breakfast. This is a totally comfort food. I grew up kind of in the United States, in the Midwest, and then I spent my summers with my grandparents in Kentucky, so this was kind of a really common food that we ate, kind of a special treat in my life now. And so I'm going to make it for you. I'll show you how I make it, but we just start with some ground pork. This is pastured pork, so really good high quality local pork here in BC where I live now. And we have some various spices and things we're going to use in it, but I'll just get this browned up and then we'll add the spicings and we'll complete it. It's going to have coconut milk, and I'll put the whole recipe down below in the box. Okay. Okay, everyone, the pork is just about browned all the way through. There's a tiny little pink spots. It's not a big deal because it's going to cook a little longer and then cook in the coconut milk as well as the gravy thickens, so it'll get all nice and done. But right now we're going to season it. So taking about, I just use my Himalayan sea salt. That's about a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to go with, sorry, I should have the lids off of these, or maybe measured out would be better for future videos. This is sage. So it's going to be about, there's 2 pounds of meat in here. You're going to want about 2 teaspoons of sage. Now all of these, you're going to obviously want to taste it. You can always add more if you want more. I do mace because a lot of the things that I would typically put in a sausage recipe you actually can't have on AIP. Some of the spices are not allowed, but mace is a great substitute for a lot of those. So again, with the mace, probably about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half just to start. And again, you may want to adjust these. I'll taste it once it's almost done, and then I'll know better. You're going to do turmeric. I just like turmeric for its anti-inflammatory. It doesn't have a super strong flavor in this, but it gives just a nice little depth of flavor, and the color is kind of neat that it gives it. About a teaspoon and a half of that. And then oregano, which I know sounds a little odd, and we're doing about, honestly, almost a tablespoon of oregano. Sounds a little strange to put oregano in sausage for a non-Italian sausage, but it actually gives a really nice flavor. It makes it, to me, taste more like actual breakfast sausage than when I was doing it without it. Originally I started with just sage and mace because sage is very classic sausage flavor, but it was flat. It just didn't have the dimension that you want in oh, it's my buzzer for another thing. Hold on just a second. It was flat. It just didn't have the dimension that you get in a nice sausage flavor. So the turmeric and oregano were recent additions, and they've worked super, super well for this particular recipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cook down and let the spices get nice and hot through. I'm going to let the meat cook for another minute. And then we're going to actually put some tapioca flour in this to act as a thickener to make it more like that nice thick gravy that you get at a Bob Evans if you're in the States, or maybe you're from the South and this is a common meal in your home. I'm going to just let this cook for probably 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll come back and show you the tapioca and the coconut milk. Okay, so this is it's been just a couple of minutes later, 2-3 minutes later. This is cooked down a bit, and it's kind of releasing. It's getting a little bit fragrant, and it's releasing some more of its oil. This is because this pork is pastured. It spends a lot of time outside eating things, and it's pretty healthy. It doesn't actually have, you don't get a lot of the fat that you would get in a conventional pork, which is good for our purposes in this recipe. We want a little bit of fat to soak up what I'm going to put in next, to help create the binding that's going to make a thickener for the actual gravy. So this is just tapioca starch, which is allowed on the AIP diet as far as I know. I think so. I've been using it. Tapioca starch. You could also use arrowroot if you prefer, although it creates a more like, the gravy gets a bit, the texture is a little different. It's a little stringier. This is a better one-for-one substitute. If you're just gluten-free, you can also just use a gluten-free flour, like a gluten-free all-purpose flour, either of your own making or one that you bought at the store. But because we're doing this one AIP, I'm doing tapioca. So this is about a 1/4 cup of tapioca starch, and you just want enough that you can kind of, you're going to want to coat it. So you just want to sprinkle enough on. Like I said, this is for 2 pounds of meat. This is about a 1/4 cup of, and I'm going to use just a little less. I'm going to mix it through and see how it looks. Because again, you want it to kind of absorb, but you don't want so much white that it'll create weird clumping. So you want it kind of to coat the meat, soak up some of that yummy fat with all the seasoning in it. But you don't want a lot of dry tapioca, because that'll actually create weird lumps in your gravy, which you don't want to have, will not be very tasty. So we could put the rest in, I think. And you're going to let it cook for another minute while you get the coconut milk cans open, because you don't want it to be like a raw, just like you would do with a regular roux with regular flour. You don't want it to be raw flour. It gives kind of weird flavor and texture. So you see how this kind of thickened already? It's kind of not as loose. It's kind of holding together almost a little bit. That's kind of what you want. I'm going to come right back and just get the coconut milk, and we'll add that in. Okay, I'm back. This is just like a minute later. I'm going to be putting in 2 cans of this, I'm going to say it right, Rd coconut milk. I like it because it's a pretty clean coconut milk. It only has, in the ingredients, I don't know if you can see that or not, coconut extract and water. So there's no gums or anything like that in this. I believe in the States you can actually get this also in like a box, and some people say that that's really nice for drinking. I don't like drinking like canned coconut milk. It's a bit too strong for me. I usually make my own coconut milk, or do a different kind. But this is great for if you're doing fake curries, or if you're making this kind of thing, or I use it in some ice cream type bases and all that. So pretty much any recipe, soup, stews, etc. A lot of people use it in their smoothies and do love it, or you can freeze it in the freezer in ice cube trays, and just add a couple of ice cubes, like coconut milk ice cubes, to your smoothie, and that gives it a really good fat, and it makes it kind of creamy. I do like to do sometimes, but I just don't like to just drink it straight. Some people love that. It's not my jam. So, but so what you're doing is I just put in 2. So it's basically 1 can of coconut milk per 1 pound of meat. Is how I usually do it, and hopefully with that tapioca that we put enough in there, hopefully that it will thicken it up. So then you're just going to let this cook. Now I tasted this before I put the tapioca starch in. The sausage seasoning was good. I added a tiny bit more salt, so just do that to taste, whatever you and your family like, or you like if you're single and not cooking for a bunch of people. And then, so it's 2 cans, like I said, Rd. I know I'm saying that wrong, so I apologize to the company. I'm butchering your name. And then we're just going to let it cook. And you're going to let it cook probably 5 minutes or so, and it should get nice and thick, and you'll see it sort of thicken up. So we'll come back. You'll see it's already kind of thickish, which is really nice, but it needs probably another minute or 2. You just want all those flavors to combine really nicely. And then we'll do another quick taste of it to make sure that it's all of the flavors are coming through the way we want them to. And then if it's good, then it's good to go, and you can serve it, or you can package it up meal prep style, or you can do individual or larger servings in your freezer for another day. So I'll check back here in about 5 minutes once I think it's about done, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so this is the gravy. It is so good. Those dark pieces you see are the oregano, but it is lovely. I just added, again, just a tiny bit more salt. Himalayan pink salt isn't quite as salty to me, flavor-wise, as table salt, so, but I tend to just kind of add it as I go. You'll want to taste yours and make sure that it's to your liking, and again, you can adjust your seasonings, you know, adding, taking away, maybe adding something different that I didn't add that you might enjoy. But this is the gravy, and it is very much like what I used to eat as a kid. So I'll give you some final picks with biscuits and everything here as well. Okay, it's time to plate it up. So this is a little AIP biscuit that I'm experimenting with. If it turns out good, then I will let you all know and get you the recipe. And then we're just going to dig right into this gravy. And this is how we do it where I grew up. Just put it right over top. You usually eat it in a bowl, often with a spoon. Although some people are fancy and eat it with forks and knives. But when my grandmother made it for me, this is how we did it. Biscuits and gravy, AIP style.